Hello and welcome back, everyone. So if you recall, we ended our previous lecture looking at Immanuel Kant's critique of pure reason, his idea of the synthetic a priori, and how all of this relates to the dominant conflict that is occurring in Western philosophy with the re-embrace of monism. It is this tendency to elevate the idea of pure rationalism, or it's the tendency to elevate the idea of pure empiricism. And so Kant's conclusion is that, taken individually, taken in isolation, both seem pretty reasonable, but when you put them together, you have a problem. And so his solution is that you link the a priori from rationalism with the synthetic in empiricism. Now this is eventually going to lead Kant now to his discussion of the Noumenon. The Noumenon is the Ding an sich, the thing in itself, and Kant is concerned now with, if you've linked the a priori with the synthetic, what you have to do now is you have to try to link the noumenal realm, that is the realm of pure reason, with the phenomenal realm. That would be the synthetic, the empirical. Now at this moment, Kant is also addressing the collapse of rationality that occurs in the empirical tradition. We have to understand, contrary the Whig view of history and of Whig philosophy, the philosophy that is emerging in Britain, the empirical tradition, the Whig tradition, it is not the liberation of reason. It is, in fact, the destruction of reason. And in fact, the British empiricists are honest about this. Empiricism, again, it's not a rational philosophical movement, and that's not meant in a sort of pejorative or derogatory sense. It's a recognition from the empiricists that their philosophy is the philosophy of simply cause and effect. It's the philosophy of the realm of pure desire. There's no reason here. Kant is picking up on this, and he's saying, well, what the empiricists have done is they've destroyed the composition, that hylomorphic composition that came out of Aristotle and Christianity, where the noumenal and the phenomenal realms had an overlap, right? What the empiricists have done is they have jettisoned the noumenal realm, they've jettisoned the transcendent realm, and what we're left with is now just the phenomenal realm, the material realm, the deterministic realm of cause and effect. It's the realm of the animals. Because what are animals? Animals simply follow their desires and inclinations. Animals don't have rationality. They behave in accordance with their inclinations, and in doing so, they follow the empirical laws of cause and effect that are predetermined, right? It's determinism, predetermined by their pure appetites. And so the empiricists, in observing the realm of the phenomenal, this realm of nature, so to speak, this realm of the animals without reason, they conclude that there is no reason in the world. Where in the world, we're just like the animals. Again, this is Hobbes's matter in motion. So we too simply follow the inclinations of pure desire. In Latin philosophy, in the classics, this was called cognitas. Cognitas is the philosophy of, just will, desire, self-advancement. In Christianity, this is called concupiscence. So that is the world now that the empiricists have put us in. And again, the post-1945 critics of Romanticism, the German Romantics are really attempting to liberate reason from the pangs of this world of pure desire, from just pure empiricism. And the empiricists admit to this. This is the philosophy that they understand, the implications. Their philosophy entails this. It's the realm of pure desire. You need to have this world of pure desire, of simply following one's inclinations, because it's only through this can you actually achieve the purely deterministic, materialistic cause and effect world that we seem to be observing through our scientific theories. Because once you add reason into the equation, you're adding free will into the equation, and this is going to potentially mess up this perfectly mathematical world of cause and effect. So Kant's looking at this now after deciding what we need to do is we need to link the two realms back together. The way you do this, according to Kant, is through the a priori in the rational and the transcendent world. You link that with the synthetic in the empirical and the phenomenal world, and that's how you bring the two back together. Kant's Noumenon, the noumenal world, is somewhat difficult to understand because Kant says that the noumenal world in a total sense is inaccessible to us. That's not to say, as some people will take, that we can't know anything about the noumenal world. That's not Kant's argument. In fact, Kant goes on to say we can know things about this noumenal world. We can know things about the phenomenal world too. We can't know everything about that realm either, because there's a noumenon to the phenomenal world. But the best way you could probably think about this is the phenomenal world is the world of pure desire. The noumenal world is the world of pure reason. But what's happened is after you get to Aristotle and the Catholic tradition, you have this unity of the two. There's a place where the two overlap, and that is the realm of knowledge. Again, what's happened in the so-called Enlightenment is we've jettisoned that hylomorphic union of the two, and we're left with either what the pure rationalists are telling us, it's just the noumenal realm, or we're left with what the empiricists are telling us. It's the realm of pure phenomenon, the realm of empirical cause and effect. Kant looks at this and says we need to get the unity back together. And so if you were to take a piece of paper and if you were to draw two circles, on the left side you can draw a circle. This is the phenomenal realm, the empirical realm, and then within that circle you draw a smaller circle. Okay, that's the synthetic. Then you'd go to the right side, you draw a circle. This is the noumenal realm, pure reason. And then you draw another circle, inside that a smaller circle, and that is the a priori. And then if you were to bring those two circles together to where not the two larger circles are overlapping, but to where the synthetic and the a priori overlap, that is now the realm of Kant's transcendental realism. That is the realm where the synthetic and the a priori overlap. That is the realm of knowledge that we can know. It's knowable through reason, but it's also knowable through experience. And now if you notice, what happens is there's an element too of the noumenal realm that overlaps with the empirical or the phenomenal realm. That is the material world that we inhabit. However, that is outside of the circles of the synthetic and the a priori, so that is inaccessible to us, right? So that is the part that we simply don't have the ability to understand because there's a limit to reason. There's a limit to reason. So Kant's looking at this world now, the world of the noumenal and the world of the phenomenal, and concludes, well, if you take the synthetic a priori, this leads back to a certain unification of an aspect of the transcendent realm and an aspect of the phenomenal realm, and this is the realm that we are capable of knowing. This is the world of the concrete. This is the world where the transcendent is also the real. Again, it's that idea of transcendental realism. However, Kant recognizes you don't have total knowledge, right? Where the noumenal and the phenomenal or the empirical realms overlap, beyond the overlapping circles of the a priori and the synthetic. This is part of the natural world. This is part of the material world that we inhabit. We can observe it, but we can never fully know that world because it's outside of the bounds of the a priori and the synthetic. So this gets Kant into murky water according to some people. Is Kant the savior of metaphysics and epistemology, or is he the destroyer of metaphysics and epistemology? Because Kant, again, has taken 10 years to meditate on this without writing anything, and now he's taken another 10 years to write his critique trilogy, Critique of Pure Reason, Critique of Practical Reason, Critique of Judgment. And he, in a way, is coming to the same conclusion that Hume reached, right? Because if we go back to Hume, Hume said, well, if we run with empiricism to its logical conclusion in our thought experiments, we realize that there's nothing. We have to have something in order to have knowledge. We assume that our theories are universally valid. And in that small window that appears there is what we're going to call knowledge. Now, for Kant, the problem with conflating him with the empiricists is the first generation of empiricists, people like Bacon and Hobbes, and for that matter Locke. They were convinced that the empirical method, that empirical methodology could lead to total knowledge. Because we've gotten rid of the noumenal realm, we've gotten rid of the world of the transcendent, we're entirely encapsulated in the world of the phenomenal. And through our empirical methodologies, we can achieve a total understanding of this world. Hume is the one who runs with this and says, well, actually, this leads us into the induction fallacy. We can't actually totally know everything in the phenomenal world. And so this is, for Hume, really a decisive blow against the dream of empiricism, the dream that we can have total knowledge, and total knowledge simply corresponds with the phenomenal world. Now, Hume agrees that only the phenomenal world exists, only the empirical world of cause and effect premised on desire, that's the only real world that exists. This noumenal realm, this realm of the transcendent, this realm of the mind, the realm of reason, that's a legacy of Christianity. We now know through our scientific theories that that does not exist. And again, Kant and the Romantics are looking at this and saying, well, that is problematic. We don't want to, are we sure we want to claim that? We're going to jettison the entire rational tradition if we move down that route. It's also the same problems that Descartes is dealing with in the Meditations. But Hume is the one then, in the empirical tradition starts off, we can have full knowledge, we can have total knowledge. Hume says, oops, actually, we were wrong about that. We can only have a limited form of knowledge. And that knowledge, in fact, has to be taken on a token of faith, a token on our axioms. And that is what knowledge is, because we don't want to end up going down the route of reductionism. Kant and the Romantics are looking at that, and they have a certain agreement in the sense that there is an inherent limit to knowledge. There's an inherent limit to reason, right? There is a realm where the noumenal and the phenomenal overlap that are out of the bounds of the synthetic and the a priori. That is the noumenon, the thing in itself that we cannot truly have access to. But there is a realm where the noumenon, the noumenal, and the phenomenal and the empirical overlap, and that is where the synthetic and the a priori overlap. But Kant makes the argument, and this is very controversial, that in order to have some rationality, in order to have some reason, in order to have some knowledge, there also has to be a recognition that we can't have total knowledge. We can't have total reason. We can't have total rationality. Now, why does Kant make this claim? Kant makes this claim because in many ways Kant is simply attempting to resurrect the old Christian philosophical tradition. The Christian philosophical tradition is that unity. It comes from Augustine, principally Augustine. It is the unity of reason and desire. It is the unity of logos and eros, right? Logos is wisdom, it's reason. Eros is desire, it's concupiscence. The unity of the two together is what gives us human nature. It's what separates us from the rest of the natural realm. It is also what gives us the ability to know certain things. Augustine is also a bit of a skeptic in that Augustine agrees we can't know everything either because we only have finite minds. We're finite minds that have some access to the infinite, but we can't have full access to the infinite. Kant is basically making the same arguments here. He's doing it, however, in a more secular manner. It's not dependent upon theological anthropology as it is in the Catholic tradition, but that's basically what Kant is arguing here for. So, in some sense, the noumenal realm of pure reason is, in a total sense, inaccessible to us. We do not have full access to that realm. But we have access to a certain amount of that realm, and that's possible because there is a certain unity of the phenomenal and the empirical realm that links up with the noumenal realm, and that's the synthetic a priori. So contrary to what some people say, where Kant, in saying that we don't have complete access to the thing in itself, we don't have full access to the noumenal realm, Kant is not an epistemological skeptic. He's not an epistemological nihilist. He's skeptical about the claims that we can have total knowledge, but he's rather confident that we can have a certain amount of knowledge. And so this is how Kant, in the Critique of Pure Reason, supposedly saves reason. He saves metaphysics and epistemology from the empiricists by bringing the synthetic and the a priori together. And bringing the synthetic and the a priori together, he brings the empirical realm and the noumenal realm back together. There's an area of overlap, the synthetic and the a priori. That is the realm of rational experience, the realm of rational experience that validates and confirms our innate ideas and our rational thought processes, or it invalidates our innate ideas and rational thought processes. And what that would mean for Kant is we thought about it incorrectly. Again, rationalism is not what let's just put it honestly, philosophically illiterate people, like Richard Dawkins, for instance, would say the empirical tradition is not rational. And simply because you use the terms reason and rationality doesn't mean that you've actually achieved anything. You can have a rational thought process that turns out to be wrong. How do we know it turned out to be wrong? You can think about it, but then if you observe out in the phenomenal world, you realize my thought process was wrong. That's not to say that such a person is a fool or an idiot. It's just a simple recognition that your thought process was wrong. So you go back to the innate idea that started your thought process, and you repeat. And then you keep doing this, and you keep having your experiences and your observations, and eventually, according to Kant, because of the unity of the synthetic and the a priori, what will happen is your rational thought process will eventually be confirmed by experience, by the phenomenal world, and that is what constitutes knowledge. Now, that is the only boundary of knowledge that we have access to. Again, there's an overlap of the noumenal and the phenomenal realm that is beyond this realm of the synthetic a priori, and we don't have access to this. And we simply have to be satisfied with that, Kant tells us. That is the only way we can have any grounded knowledge. Okay? So that is Kant's Noumenon, and how it relates to the synthetic a priori. There's an aspect of the Noumenon that is accessible to the synthetic a priori, and that is the realm of pure knowledge. That is the realm where reason and the phenomenal, the realm of reason and the synthetic, the realm of reason or the empirical, come together, and that is what we can know. Now, this is going to be very important for the rest of the Romantics, people like Fichte and Hegel especially, but also Herder and Schelling and Schleiermacher. This idea of a slight overlap in the noumenal realm with the phenomenal realm, which is the area where the synthetic and the a priori link together, and that is the realm of knowledge, that has a tremendous influence on Kant's interpreters. The German interpreters of Kant, who eventually create the German idealist and the German romantic tradition, are building upon those two aspects of Kant's philosophy in the Critique of Pure Reason, the synthetic a priori, and this idea of the noumenal and the phenomenal realms having a certain overlap together. That is the concrete, that is the real world according to Kant. Again, this is his transcendental realism. There's an aspect of the rational which is concrete, and there's an aspect of the phenomenal which is rational. Okay? And so Kant's interpreters are going to look at that, and they like it and they also dislike it. They like it because there's a certain, Kant has achieved a certain salvation, if you will, of rationalism. Kant has saved the world of reason from the world of pure empiricism, and in doing so, he has saved human nature from the pits of nihilism. However, certain of the other Romantics, we'll look at Fichte next, because Fichte is Kant's first major interpreter. Fichte and Hegel and the rest of the German Romantics build on this, but they are not satisfied with Kant's conclusions. They are not satisfied that we only have the ability to know a certain aspect of this concrete world that we live in. They're hoping that through the philosophy of Kant, right, Kant's sort of neo-rationalism, his transcendent realism or his transcendent rationalism, that we can in fact eventually come to know the full concrete world. And so that's going to be the rest of the project of first generation German Romanticism. It is the attempt to have full knowledge of the concrete world through rational experience. And this is going to be the nexus upon which Hegel, Fichte, and the entire German idealist tradition builds on. And it is precisely this push of the German interpreters of Kant that lead us down to the path of phenomenology. We'll get to that at the end of our lecture series, looking at the influence of German Romanticism and idealism, but that is what the rest of the German Romantics are going to start building upon. Fichte is the first major interpreter of Kant. Fichte, in der geschlossene Handelsstaat, runs with this idea of the synthetic a priori with the noumenal and the phenomenal, and he begins to revise Kant while using Kant. All the German Romantics from here on are going to be building upon Kant's synthetic a priori and his idea of a certain overlap between the noumenal and the phenomenal realms. That is the realm of reason, that is the realm of rational experience, that is the realm that we have access of knowledge to, but they're ultimately unsatisfied with Kant's conclusion that there's a part of this concrete material realm that's ultimately inaccessible to us. So the rest of the Romantics are going to be playing with these ideas, and they're going to be establishing philosophies that attempt to have a complete knowledge of the concrete. And by the concrete, what they really mean is a complete knowledge of the rational. And so the German Romantics are, from this point on, going to be a complete 180 from the empiricists. The empiricists are telling us we cannot have access to the realm of the transcendent, we cannot have access to the realm of the rational. And the reason why, according to the empiricists, we can't have access to those realms is because those realms don't exist. And so all you're left with is the phenomenal and the empirical realm of strict mechanistic determinism, cause and effect, the world of desire. Again, Kant has now rebuked the empirical tradition. He's established a reharmonization of reason and desire, a reharmonization of the noumenal and the empirical realms, and now the rest of the German Romantics are going to be playing with the abstract, concrete distinction that is implicit in Kant's philosophy, but that which fully get hashed out by people like Fichte and Hegel. So when we return, we're going to put Kant aside now, and we're going to turn to Fichte. Fichte is Kant's most important early interpreter. Fichte is a major influence on Hegel, and Fichte is the one who's going to decide, basically, Kant got the ball moving in the right direction. Kant has attempted to save reason from the empiricists, but he didn't do a sufficient job. Kant made a mistake, and Fichte is going to be the one who tells us what the mistake is, how we resolve that mistake from Kant, and how, according to Fichte, through his resolution of this small Kantian error, we have the pure salvation of reason.